Well, he did shoot first, so there's that. Solo, another Star Wars story. Hey there, movie fans, welcome to another belated review of another movie. And today we're looking at Solo, a Star Wars story. What to say, really? The more I thought about this movie, the more I became disappointed. There were still some good things in the movie, to be fair, but let's do what we do here, which is analyze. Okay, usually you know how we go by levels, and we go first level, just the technical aspect of the movie. Let's do that. The movie looks really, really good. Cinematography and the special effects today are at a point where everything looks so realistic, and if the director has a good eye and a good imagination in the way he presents every scene, every sequence, then the movie looks just great. As they were moving from location to location, everything just looked really, really well done. Obviously there was a lot of time put into this aspect of the movie. The chase sequences, especially the action sequences, the Falcon sequences, everything they had to do with the action and things in motion and fights and things like such, they look just great. They had, they made an impact, I would say, even in the film. But other things didn't work as well in that technical aspect, like the music. It wasn't anything memorable, anything to remember. If anything, it felt like the producers knew this does not look like a Star Wars movie, so let's use the music to remember people, hey, you're watching Star Wars! So there were times where they were bombarding you with Star Wars themes, trying to evoke some emotion from you, trying to make you remember, oh yeah, man, this is Han Solo, this is the Millennium Falcon, this is a Star Wars adventure, you should be rooting for these guys. It didn't work. Let me tell you, it didn't work. Okay, now another part of the movie, technical aspect, the pacing of the movie, okay? Just a couple of days before I went to see the movie, because I didn't see it the weekend that it came out, I went like 2 weeks later. A bunch of my friends and students, because I work at a school, they had already seen it. And one of them was like, teacher, have you seen the movie yet? I was like, no, don't spoil it. And he was like, oh, okay. You're gonna like it, I think. Just be patient, okay? And I was like, patient? Okay. I really didn't know what he meant until I actually sat in the theater and I started watching. And it's the pacing, man. It takes a long while to get going, and it feels really choppy because they try to put you into the action right away, like some movies execute very, very well. But it didn't work because the reason why the protagonist, or a hero, or Solo in this case, was supposed to be in danger, they came out of nowhere. And since this is a character you know survives all the way to the original trilogies, like, so where's the peril really? We know nothing's gonna happen to him, we know nothing's gonna happen to Chewie, which is pretty much the only two characters that we really care about in this movie. And we care more about Chewie because he's the one character who actually stays in character in the movie. He's the only one that actually feels like himself, even though he was played by a different actor, not Peter Mayhew anymore. Because Han Solo, or I'd rather say the actor who played Han Solo, I forgot his name right now, he did not do anything special with the role. I mean, it was serviceable, it wasn't horrible, like, oh my gosh, no, but he really didn't bring anything special to the role either. But the story, the way it was told, I was very disappointed because Lawrence Kasdan worked on this screenplay. He worked on the original trilogy, and I was really, really expecting a lot more from him. And yet, you know, oh, by the way, before I continue, I forgot to mention, just in case you forgot to read the description below, this is the spoiler review, so be warned, okay? We're into spoiler territory. We're going to talk about everything and anything, so if you haven't seen it, you're really not missing much. And if you want to check this video out, even if you haven't seen the movie, you're welcome. Okay, well, just beware. We're talking spoilers here. So that said, I really was expecting the pacing and the movie to be more consistent. But there's a scene after the train, you know, the Snowpiercer, the train in the snow. Right after that scene, after that sequence, I was falling asleep in the theater, man. I was like, oh my gosh, now I know what he meant by being patient, because it was so boring. I mean, you try to start the movie on a high note and then it just drops like really, really bad. And then it's really, really low and slow for a long time, and then it kind of picks up again a little bit, and then it boom again. And then all of a sudden you're thrown into a big action sequence just because, and then it goes down again. So the whole pacing was terrible. It makes the movie feel like it's 4 hours long. So that was also on the negative side. And we're just talking technical aspect right now. Okay, so far the only positive thing was the special effects, then the music and the pacing, and pretty much the acting even, I would say. It was nothing special, and it really made the whole experience feel like a waste of your time. And that's sad, given that this is a Star Wars movie, okay? Alright, and that's just the first level, the technical aspect, because when it comes to the narrative, which we already kind of touched on some points, is just terrible. I mean, your characters don't feel like, I remember, just like I said, just going before into the movie, some of my friends, one of my friends told me, like, listen, the movie is okay, like it's actually fun if you give it a chance, but just don't go in expecting to see Harrison Ford, okay, because he's not Harrison Ford, so don't expect that, okay, but give the guy a chance, and the movie's fun if you look at it that way. And I was like, listen, I want to give this movie a chance, really, because it's a movie that I really didn't want to see, but if it's happening, I'd rather it be a good movie. So I was really hoping for something better. Maybe not special on the level that the original trilogy was, but at least a fun action film for the summertime. Instead, I was really disappointed with the way the whole movie played out. So let's talk about Han Solo, the character, okay? I can definitely understand why some people are saying, dude, come on, this is not Harrison Ford, give the guy a chance, you know? But here's the problem that I have with that. Harrison Ford defined the role of Han Solo, okay? He is Han Solo. He made Han Solo who he is. The way he acts, the way he does everything, the way he's kind of grumpy and impatient with everybody else around him. He has this natural charm to him that this guy did not bring. Now, of course, we cannot expect him to be a clone of Harrison Ford, but he is playing the younger version. So those character traits need to be there because they are part of the character, okay? So that's one of the biggest issues that I have, or one of the biggest issues in general with audiences when they go see a younger actor go play an established character. Because that's the problem. The character already has been established. So you need to have those personality traits well put out on the page and well executed by the actor, whoever they are, to make you feel like you're watching that character come to life. Case in point, if you compare Ewan McGregor to Sir Alec Guinness, and the way Ewan plays Obi-Wan as a young Obi-Wan is not just how he looks or how he talks, but it's the little things he does, the little things that Ewan McGregor does that do remind you that are consistent with the Obi-Wan character. Things like, you know, the way he rubs his beard when he's being analytical about something, the way he sees the universe around him. You can see his progression as a character, but you always see those character traits from the original character from Alec Guinness being done or being executed by Ewan McGregor very well. That's why a lot of people are really excited about seeing an Obi-Wan movie. But this guy, he did not feel like Han Solo ever. It was just like another smuggler out there another X character that could have been named absolutely anything else. And other than the fact that they try to make him look like Han Solo and that he flies the Falcon and that he wears the clothes, he did not feel like Solo to me. Like, was he a bad actor? No. It's not that he was a bad actor. Like, he executed his part. He did it rather well. But because he was so generic and he was not memorable and he did not evoke the emotion that the character of Han Solo should produce, then he could have been played by anybody. And I mean anybody. There's actors and amateur actors out there that I've seen in fan films who do a way better Han Solo than this guy did. So was that his fault because he was a bad actor, or just lack of direction, or a bad script? Whatever it was, in either case, it didn't work. So I never fell for the character. I knew that no matter in how much danger he would be, he was always going to be okay, because I know Solo makes it all the way to The Force Awakens. So that was also terribly done. And remember, for us fans who grew up with the original trilogy, everything that happened before or after the original trilogy, we learned from books, from novels, from comic books, the expanded universe. That's how we used to call it. Now it's called anthology. But so the expanded universe, that used to be canon. And the novels and the comic books and every book written on the outside of the original trilogy were so well crafted and so well done. Many of you might not know this or might not have even read some of this material, but something that used to happen was that whoever was writing a particular novel, they would check in with George Lucas to see, if I do this with these characters, would that be within character? Would that be within what you envision these characters to do? Would this be okay to do? And he would give his okay or say, no, I don't think so. I don't think this character would do this, or I don't think this type of story would fit into the overall. And there was always collaboration. And even like Timothy Zahn has said it in a Jedi Search, that he talked to other people and other publishers and other writers, so all the writers were always, even though they were doing their own little thing, they were always talking to each other, making sure that everything that they would write in their own book would still fit within the overall. And you could still feel the characters pop out of the page and feel like what you saw in the movies. So the whole Han Solo mythos and backstory is iconic in itself, the way we grew up and everything that we knew about him. So when they announced the movie, us the fans, we were looking forward to some of these things that were so well executed in books and in magazines, like the way he meets Chewie and all of these legendary things that slowly built up to the character that we love of Solo in the original trilogy. So when the movie was coming out, we were promised a lot of things, or we were expecting a lot of things, and none of those panned out. So what was the point of the movie? In the original expanded universe, the way Han and Chewie meet, Chewie is being tortured by an Imperial officer, and Han can't take it anymore. So he jumps in and decks the officer, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but he saves Chewie's life. And that's why Chewie owes a life debt to Solo, and that's why he's his loyal companion throughout. So I was looking forward to seeing this dynamic, and then it just so happens that he's the monster that eats people, because apparently Wookiees eat people now. And so Solo just meets him. They start fighting around, and he's like, I have an idea to escape. Oh, okay, let's escape. Now I owe you my life because you had an idea on how to escape. That totally kills the possibility of these characters really building a strong relationship from the beginning. And I call BS on how Han was able to speak Wookiee. I mean, some of us even goof around pretending to be Wookiees, and we do the voice, and I have my action figures when I was growing up and little stuffed animals, and I would even do the Wookiee voice. But come on, never in the original trilogy did we see Han speaking Wookiee to Chewie. Just the fact that he was able to understand them doesn't mean he could create the sounds and speak Wookiee. And we know from the original trilogy that Chewie understands English because everybody talks to him in English and he always complies. So why did they have to go and make Han, go like, if come on, that's never happened. Why couldn't he just say, listen, man, stop it, I have an idea, and have Chewie stop for a while, and then maybe they can do something about it. And because even the character says, yeah, I speak a little Wookiee, I know a little bit, I spend time, something like that. So that kills that original meeting between them. We know that in part Han is the big character that he is because he went to the Imperial Academy. He spent time with them. He became a pilot. He learned how to be a pilot with them. And once he goes into the academy, we never get to see any of that, which could have been another great way to present the character and see his evolution as a character in the academy. Instead, we're just like, he signs in, he enrolls in the military, and then it's 3 years later. Really? That lazy of a script? Just 3 years later? And he's not even piloting, he's in the infantry? Come on, man. That really killed it. Another reason that Solo wears the blood stripes on his original pants in the trilogy is because he was Corellian military. So why couldn't we see that too, that part of the character? So we didn't see any of the things or the memorable things that we wanted to see executed properly. So it just made for like, really? So why is this guy so iconic then if this is what happened? The Kessel Run, which is a big part of the Solo mythos, even in the original trilogy when Obi-Wan and Luke come into the cantina and they speak to Solo, and Solo is like, you never heard of the Millennium Falcon? That's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Why would those characters know that if this is something that happened that nobody knew about? It was a secret mission that just happened out of nowhere. Nobody knew this was happening. So why would he be boasting about this, or why is that such a big part of the mythos? Well, because in the original stories told, it was a big deal. People knew what was going on. There's the version of the comics and the versions of the books, and it's a really fun story to delve into. And yet here it just falls flat. And of course, they had to have another tentacle monster in these movies. What the heck, Disney? We're gonna get to the messages in just a while, but so the way Solo becomes a pilot is disappointing. The way he met Chewie is disappointing. The Kessel Run is disappointing. Why couldn't he just be Han Solo? That's his family name. He's always been Solo. It's not a big deal. Luke Skywalker is Skywalker. Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everybody has their names. Why did he have to be like this orphan with no name? Even orphans at some point get a name or adopt a name. So he doesn't even come up with a name himself. An officer has to be like, I'm all alone. Oh, then you're Han alone. Of course, he doesn't say that. But at this point, I'm like, oh no, he's gonna say it. It's because you're going solo, so you're Han Solo. Oh, come on. That's how he got his name? That's just stupid, man. That just sucked a big time. So that blows too. Luke has his lightsaber. Chewie has his belt and his crossbow. Han had his blaster pistol. So that was a big thing, his blaster pistol is kind of like James Bond and his Walther PPK. It's kind of like John McClane and his Beretta. How did he get his gun? Because another guy says, hey, by the way, I'm gonna be your guy here, your role model, and you, the new guy that I hardly know, I'm gonna give you my best weapon. There you go, kid. No, come on. The new guy, you know what the new guy gets? He gets the noisy cricket, man. He gets the noisy cricket. Why couldn't he just have gotten this as part of the military, and he did some special modifications to it, and that's why is his blaster, he never parts from it. No, it's just some other guy gave it to him, and it was the best gun around, and he kept it. That's it. Come on. Which brings us to, does Han shoot first? Well, yeah. And this was one of the only positives I saw in the movie when it came to story. is that at some point I knew they were going to address this. I thought maybe during a battle he was going to shoot someone and then he would turn to Chewie and say, remember Chewie, always shoot first. Or maybe his mentor or someone like, hey kid, always shoot first, something like that. And yet the way it was executed, you know, when he's standing in front of the guy and he just shoots him, that at least shows me that it is within the character to not goof around when his life is in danger and shoot first. And it was about the only good, interesting thing in the story that was never really explored. It's just something that happened and everybody was expecting it to happen. But at least it was one of the best executed things in the movie, I thought. All right? Because everything else, man, it was horrible. The Falcon is the Falcon. It is the ship in all of sci-fi. Okay? It's up there with the X-Wing, which is another Star Wars ship. It's up there with the Galactica, but the Millennium Falcon is the Millennium Falcon. It's the most iconic ship in movie history, in sci-fi, and in the Star Wars universe. So we know this ship is special. So the way he got it was something that we wanted to see. And yet again, it disappoints because it falls flat on the execution on how you get the ship. And another thing, when we first meet Solo in the original trilogy, and you know, Luke is like, it's a piece of junk. He's like, hey, she may not look like much, kid, but she's got it where it counts. I've made a lot of special modifications myself. You know, this is something that if you ever own a car and worked on your car, you don't wreck your car one day and at that moment you make all of the special modifications. No, man, this is a process of years. Something breaks down, you replace it, you fix it. Something else breaks down, you replace it, you fix it. You get into a small accident, a dent, you bump, you fix that. And eventually, over years, you build up your ship, okay? But here, we encounter a brand new Millennium Falcon. And in the Kessel Run, in just one run, we see how they lose the dish, how they lose the guns, how they lose the escape pod so that we can see the shape of the Falcon, and a lot of all these panels that disappear during the battle. So in one go, they wanted to show us this is how the Falcon got to this point. At least from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens, there was one small change, or two I would say, because we know the Falcon lost the dish in the battle in Jedi. So in The Force Awakens, he has the rectangular dish. And you would say, well, we know why, right? We know what happened. And why do I say there's two changes in the Falcon from that to The Force Awakens? Is sound. The way the guns sounded in A New Hope and Empire and Return of the Jedi to the way the cannons sound in The Force Awakens, that means at some point they did some modification or they changed the guns because they don't sound the same, okay? But that's a small detail. But here is like, they just went from A to B and it was like, oh, so that's how it happened. I remember at some point that someone said during pre-production that we were gonna see how the claws or how the jaws of the Falcon worked because they were designed as cargo ships, as freighters. Supposedly they use them to move large cargo containers and such, and that's why the cockpit of the Falcon is like this, so that you can look outside and see what's going on with your cargo. No, it was just an escape pod, and then they just release it, and so it means every ship looks like that, except his doesn't have the pod. And if it's an important part of the ship, why didn't he just replace it years later and still appear in A New Hope? So it means that this is something they just came up with to supposedly tell us why the shape of the Falcon is the shape that it is. And it's like, it's something that I really didn't need. You could have just shown the Falcon as we saw it and we'd be like, yeah, that's how the ship looks. That's what Falcons look like, right? So that didn't work either. Everything they tried to make us go back and look at the movie and say, oh, it's Star Wars. Nothing works. Nothing. All right, so we saw the technical aspect, which was kind of okay, but the narrative was terrible. The pacing was terrible. And at first I thought I was going to give this movie like a thumb up and a thumb down, saying some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it. The positive aspects were the action sequences and such. And some people are not gonna like it because of these other aspects. But the more I sat here and I thought about it, I realized no, the movie's not that good either. It doesn't even have that going for it because it's not executed well, and in the end it takes you nowhere. So it's just a really bad movie that was made from a bad script, and it was badly executed. And I'm sad to say that because it's been proven that you can do a movie outside of the original, the trilogy, or a movie outside of the main stories, or the chapters, because Rogue One was just awesome. Rogue One was great. Every time it's playing on TV, I stop and I watch because it was just a great film. So that means it can be done. And there was no excuse for a Solo movie not to be good, but it was. So as a movie, I would say the Han Solo blows, man. Who authorized this? We didn't need this. So obviously Disney just wants to make money, and they just put this movie out there without much thought. The movie in itself is terrible. If you haven't seen it, I would say don't even go. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Maybe someday it's going to be playing on TV and you have nothing better to do. All right, then you can watch it if you want. But in the end, it just ruins it ruins the experience of the original trilogy. Once you look at that and you say, so that's why we have this Solo? Nah. So no, it's terrible. It's a terrible movie. I would say. Now let's go into the deepest aspect of the movie, which was also surprisingly badly executed. Which is why this channel exists, is exposing the evil agendas of the Luciferian Hollywood and how they want to manipulate your minds to accept, the next coming of the Antichrist. Man, they didn't even get that right, because the whole thing that most of the symbolism that I saw here, they didn't deal with gods trying to take over our planet and things like that. It's usually the Gnostic message behind these movies, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, the Avengers. Nah, it was just a heist movie that was poorly executed. The only symbolism I saw was, the squid monster, the tentacle monster that is now in every Star Wars movie apparently. Yes, I get it. You have your tentacles everywhere. Yes, you are everywhere. Yes, you manipulate everything. Yes, we know that. We know that from Spectre. We know that from all the Star Wars movies. Alright, enough with the tentacle monsters, okay? And it was just there just to be there. It could have been any other type of monster out there in space, but they had to make it a tentacle monster just because. Badly executed. And then the other part that was really horrible, and right before I went into the movies, I saw this interview with Donald Glover, and how they were saying in an interview, accepting, then Lando Calrissian is a pansexual. And it was this big issue online that, they're admitting that. So going into the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to see here? They didn't even do that right. So in the end, it's just like they were trying to promote the feminist movement through droids, but we know that that doesn't really affect anything in the future because things are the same way they are in the next movies. Nothing changes. And it doesn't work if you're trying to promote the feminist movement because you're doing it with a droid. So how are you going to identify with the exploitation of women if you're talking about droids? That could be exploitation of little children or just men in general. But you're doing it with a droid, but in the end, how are you going to use that as a symbolism if it's just a droid, if it's just a machine? And yet, we, the fans and characters within the movie, they have this attachment to their droids, like Poe with BB-8, Luke with R2-D2, and we, the fans, we love these droids. We see them like our friends, like our buddies. So just the reason that Lando is so attached to his droid wasn't really that big of a deal. It was sort of weird that there's this dialogue between the droid and another character when she, because it's a she, that's just the voice because it's a droid. he's saying, Lando is kind of like into me, but I don't know. Like, he's in love with me, but I don't know if I love him that way. So they are really trying to make it seem like they do have a relationship that goes beyond master and droid. But it's done so poorly that when it happens, you're like, yeah, it was kind of weird the way he felt about his droid, but meh, he's gonna get another one. So we have to learn this pansexual agenda through an interview outside of the movie because your movie couldn't even get that right. That's just terrible writing, man. At least other movies, they have their agenda very clear, done in symbolism, and you have to analyze it and say, I see where you're coming from. This one was like, oh, so I know that he's pansexual because of the interview, not because of the movie. So they didn't even get that right. Unfortunately, that was the agenda, and because they needed to promote that, they had to make that interview public so people understood what they were supposed to be pushing. And of course, man, that's what, you're gonna have sex with a toaster now? What the hell's wrong with you, man? Like we said before, people don't like it when we talk about God, and people don't like to go to church because they don't want to be preached, and they hate it when they pass the offerings. Like, why am I gonna give these people money if they just want to brainwash me? Yet you willingly go and pay money in a movie theater to have your brain washed for a couple of hours. Come on, man. So overall, the movie was bad in every aspect. If some of you liked it, I'm glad that you liked it and that you found some sort of entertainment value in it. But me, I hated it. What did you think? Leave a comment below, and remember to like, share, subscribe, share this everywhere in the galaxy. And I'm gonna see you soon for another belated review because, man, I've been so busy. I still have to go see Deadpool. Yeah, I know, I still haven't seen it, and I gotta bring you that review. So until next time, movie fans, I'll see you at the movies.